meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome to the, what did I call it? The conclave of the melomaniacs. And if you want to know what a melomaniac is, a melomaniac apparently, and I only found this out when I was trying to come up with the title, is the name for someone who is a maniac about music, which I assume you are. So how many of you are maniacs about music? Hands up. Let's yeah, I've got one hand, two hands. Oh, lovely. So patrons, it's lovely to see you all. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I've got nothing planned at all for this. So what do you want to do?
I thought maybe we can start by talking about the last interview you had with Marvin.
With Marvin, yeah, if you want, yeah. Just so I think this is the best way to do it. If you've got
it knocked
and everybody just chime in. I know it could be chaos, but you know, don't just sit there. If you want to say something, don't be shy. Just chime in.
Maybe we can even do a little round the table thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I knew Doran would take control. I was confident. He's been so eager, and I knew he'd take. It's really weird, isn't it? Because I've been talking to you so long, and then to actually see that, because you get all these little ideas of people's personalities as well. That's what's quite strange, you know. So Doran's been champing at the bit to get in here, and he's probably got about 30 questions.
I feel about you the way you feel about Rick Beato.
Oh, that's a very very nice compliment. I think of him like my dad.
I think of you like my dad a bit.
Oh, you see, that's the way it is.
The dad I never had, you know, the dad that didn't give me the right music, you know.
No, can you imagine having a dad like Rick Beato?
Oh my God! Did you see his son?
Brilliant, that would be. Yeah, perfect pitch for a start.
Amazing.
I said to my daughter who sings today, she was singing. What was she singing? It was some modern pop song, and I said, I think you've got that in the right key. Now I have very vague perfect pitch, but it's not great. And I said, I think you're singing that in the right key. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, sing Whole Lot of Love. So she starts singing Whole Lot of Love, and we switched on Spotify, and she got that one right. And then she then did, she said, I'll do Superstition, which is in E flat major. And that was like, she didn't get it. So, you know, so I've had that conversation. I thought if I was Rick Beato, she'd probably be perfectly in perfect pitch. Now, I'd like to welcome into the group the first guest here, the incredible Roy Marchbank. Would you like to give Roy a round of applause? Here he is.
How you doing, guys?
Hey.
I'm good, Andy. How you doing, mate? All right. How you doing, guys?
You're in a different place to normal.
I am, yeah. We're well, I'm out of hell because my studio is actually currently running about 50 degrees because it's it's so hot. I mean, I live in a little studio apartment, you know, at the very top of the house, so there's no window in it, so I just get slowly boiled to death. But I'm actually down in London at this point, so yeah.
What the plan is, Roy, is these are my patrons in front of them. Look at them, they're lovely, aren't they? Can you see them?
Oh, they're
lovely.
wonderful.
There's 100 of them. There's 100 of them, and I think 5 have bothered to turn up, which I think is pretty good, really. It's like a jazz gig, basically. You know, you've told all your mates, you got to the venue, and there's 5 people there. So
and the family, yeah.
And they're just gonna ask questions, and we're just gonna have a chat. So Doran was just asking me about Marvin, Danny Rabin. So having you in here would be interesting to get your take as well. So what's your question?
So Marvin was really on about, you know, it's all about what's going on with fusion today and jazz. And he's really into the guitar solos. Like everything is about the soloing. And first of all, I think it was a great interview. He's a great guy. We come from basically the same area. And I know exactly what he's talking about when he's talking about the influences of people like us who didn't grow with, you know, listening to Grateful Dead from their parents or something like that. We had a really different kind of approach to music, and we got into jazz and rock and of course prog rock. And he's into, you know, he moved out to Chicago. He's playing with Marvin and everything. And to me, I felt so good about this interview because it touched on so many points. But then again, I thought it's still not it. It's still not what I'm looking for. It has all the right ingredients, the right people, the right personalities, the right visceral playing, but there's still something I'm missing. And, you know, I'm thinking about, I mean, I'm a musician and I'm doing a lot of stuff outside music, but, you know, how come I can't make great music today the way I thought I would do 20 years ago? What's going on? Why can't I just get the guitar? I get my friends, we're jamming, we're gigging. We're not in the range, you know, where Marvin is. We're not that good of players, but we're making music. We're making music together. This is really what's important. And I felt like with this interview, there was something about, it's still not solved. That problem we're talking about, it's still not solved. He did come from a music school, maybe a different one. I'm just, you know, it's not, I can't sleep, you know, it's not leaving me, this thing. And of course, there's the other thing about AI and technology and all this crap, but I just wanted to go a little deeper about what you thought, you know, about his music, really what you think about his music. I mean, let's just be honest for a minute. It's great soloing. He's really got the vibe. Do you really wake up in the morning and you put it on your stereo in the morning on Saturday? Do you put it when you come home from work? Do you put it on in the car and just bang your head like, you know, like you do with other records? What's missing? That's my question.
Well, when he appeared on camera, I gotta be honest, I did take an instant dislike to him because he's too good looking. I thought he was a very handsome man.
Yeah,
he's very young and handsome, and I'm sure that's what us older men. I think that's really what's driving this program. I'm only joking. Well, I'll bring Roy in again, and because Roy's an interesting guy to have here, because for me, I am looking for something different. I don't want to just hear standard fusion, right? I can listen to standard fusion in the 70s. I love it. I grew up with it. But if someone's going to do it now, they've got to put something else in there. And those sort of Eastern European melodies is colouring it for me. And then, I like the fact that they aren't treating that as being sort of world music. They're like rocking. But and that's the X factor for me. Roy is an absolute expert on that type of thing. He's gone deep into that stuff. I think it's not, the fault doesn't lie with Marvin. I think the fault lies with the structure of music nowadays, in that, I'll give you an example. Last night, I went up to see a masterclass by Tom Quayle and Martin Miller. Now, they're two YouTube guitarists, so they're giants at the moment. They're huge on YouTube. And I watched it, sat down and I watched it. And the last track they did How Insensitive, which is a Antonio Carlos Jobim, and they played it. And when they got to the final chord, they just hit that last chord, and then they went on this improvisation for about 10 minutes. And it wasn't about technique. It was just beautiful. It was quiet. They weren't playing that fast or showing off. They were just playing together. And everyone was in the room, and you felt the thing change. And I actually had my eyes closed, and every single note was going into my head. Absolutely brilliant. And they came up afterwards. I said, Tom, Martin, I said, that was amazing. I said, I know you're great guitarists, but YouTube is not doing you any favors, because that thing of sat in a room, giving it the time, letting it go in, and then them having that space to be able to present something, and you suddenly go beyond the technique and the showing off and all that. And the trouble is that the way that used to happen in the old days, would you buy a record? Most of the records I loved, I hated when I first bought them. You know, you'd listen to them over and over again, and you become attached to them. And it's really difficult. I'm pretty sure that if I had a Marvin album and I was on a desert island and that's all I'd have, it would be my favorite album. I would find all that stuff in there, because the musicians they're giving you the truth. They're always trying their best to give you the truth. So what do you think, Roy, about this?
From a personal point of view, I have to go back to the initial spark that got me right into music in the very first place. And I have to be brutally honest with myself. If the spark isn't there every time I pick up a guitar, I'll just put it down. So I have to try and find it. The way that I went about it was I would open tune or be in some kind of an alter tune that I didn't know. So when I pick up the guitar, I'm fumbling in the dark for something. But the good thing is when I find something, it's fresh. I'm not going back in something I've played before. It's something that's new. So I'm looking for that spark all the time, and absolutely everything, be it a solo, be it a piece of music. And I do the same with tone and with sound. So you're never going to get the same thing from me twice in a row, normally, unless the gig's demanding that. And if it is demanding that, I'm usually going to try and change that every single time to keep my own interest there, but also for the listener. So if I'm being totally honest, brutally honest with myself, the listener knows that, and it's an energy, and you have to have that energy in you, inside of you. And if you're promoting that live, people feel it. So I would say there's not enough of that going on. There's a lot of cerebral happening, a lot of clever, really amazingly well played music happening. But honest, I'm not so sure, you know. I think a lot of the old guys, all the old players, because we're playing acoustically as well, they didn't have anything, there was nothing there supporting them. It was just an acoustic instrument, you know, piano, sax, clarinet, guitar for the most part until they put a pickup on it. And there was something really extra honest about that, you know, and I miss that. I miss that in a lot of the players. I miss that in my own playing, so I'm always looking for that. I think talking to the guy that's probably got the most advanced MIDI setup on the planet right now, but I'm always looking to go back to that initial spark. And as long as I'm there, and as long as I'm promoting what it is that I'm playing by being honest with myself, I think people get that. I think they're confused by it.
Different kind of sparks, right? There are different kind of sparks. There's that mad spark.
Yeah.
There is that sad spark. There are so many kinds of sparks. It doesn't have to be, you know, it just has to be sort of communicating in, I mean, this is why maybe I'm thinking about going totally to the other side, like going punk. You know, this is where I think our band really has that spark. We just go nuts. And,
I think it's...
Yeah.
So, sorry. Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah. I mean,
hands up. Who are actual musicians here? You know, I am. I know Quid. Yeah. So, what do the other musicians in the room think about this? Because what we're really talking about, I think, is trying to find that thing in yourself, isn't it? How do you find that thing in yourself where you go, oh my God, I've discovered a new world. Oh, there's a new room here. What's in here? I mean, that's what we're trying to find. And what is there a process to?
I don't know.
So who wants to go first? Dean, do you want to say something? Oh no, yeah, Colin, do you want to say something?
Yeah, it's like Roy just says in my head. It's he's actually looking to challenge himself, open tuning, do something different. So he's got to challenge himself to get something out of it, and I think anybody listening to that would appreciate what he's doing. And like you said, when you're in a room, it's completely different to watching an expert on YouTube.
Yeah, it really struck me, I tell you. And the other thing that was weird about last night was I went out for a drink with them afterwards, and I know Martin's playing really well, but Tom Quayle I didn't know so well. And you know Tom Quayle's playing, don't you, Roy? Because he's very, very good guitarist, isn't he? Very good.
Oh, he's a fantastic jazz player. I mean, he knows how to play over the changes. So
we sit down the thing, and I said, you know what you two guys have just done? He said, what? I said, you've just done a jazz gig. They played, it was jazz standards, and they played and they did some free improvisation to a room, you know, quite a big audience. They didn't know it was jazz. Tom and Martin didn't say it was jazz. It was jazz, and everyone loved it. And I thought, that's interesting. They've slipped the jazz in, you know. And I said to Tom afterwards, I said, why, you know, I said, you're a jazz musician. He goes, I'm not a jazz musician. And I said, why? He said, because I can't play alternate picked, you know, 8-note jazz lines. And I'm looking at this bloke, this Tom Quayle sitting there going, I can't do this and I can't do that. And I was going, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? What, you know, and it's incredible that musicians at that level still have all these things in their heads of what they can and can't do and what they should and what they shouldn't do. And I'm not so much like that. I know Roy is not like that. We're much more like, I'm interested, and I think I don't mind about going wrong. You know, I tell you, Tom and Martin, I could tell they're really concentrating on not trying to go wrong. And they play absolutely perfectly, which I think is why they're great internet guitarists, because they can sit there and churn out these sort of solos absolutely note for note, you know. But so I think there's another thing there is not being scared to go wrong.
I think that's where discovery, something new happens as well. Those little sparks that happen usually is when you're going wrong.
You take the risk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it happens with for no reason. One thing I did notice, and I would like to share, is like when I practice for a long period of time. I mean, like sometimes 8 to 12, sometimes ridiculous 16 hours, and then usually when I feel like I'm so tired I can't go on, when I push myself that little bit more, a spark happens. Something comes from nowhere, something I've never done before, and it's captured, and I know what it is, but I'm trying to understand what it is, and it's that spark. It's like the start of a universe, you know. These things only happen once or twice every few years, right. And that's what's fascinating to me, is what is that? Because I know that when I first played the instrument, when I first picked it up, and initially I could play my first piece of music, it was just, everybody's been there, right? We all just knew, oh my God, I know what I'm doing for the rest of my life. It's that thing. And you're trying to get back to that, but every so often it's like these little gifts are handed to you, and it really does come from nowhere. It's not something that's pre-thought, and that's what's fascinating about music. It's those little things that mean so much, and that's the mystery of it. And I don't think we're supposed to understand it. I don't think you can.
I've played with hundreds of musicians, and Roy is different to virtually all the musicians I've played for. He's got that Miles Davis thing. So he's not satisfied to do the same thing again, and it tears him to bits. It tears him to bits. You get in rehearsal room, and it's like the tone or the notes or what he's trying to get, and you're watching it go, what? That's bonkers what you're doing. But if you really search for this, don't you? You really want to find that thing all the time. Whereas,
I know it's there.
Never repeating yourself.
Never.
And never doing the same gig twice. Never doing the same gig the same.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, Charlie Mann said that they never played the same thing once, the same way.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that that's why these guys do that. It's because for them, the spark, the reason that they play, it's putting themselves on the spot all the time in front of an audience. You know what? I'll give you a good bit of a laugh. I was given the opportunity to play with Weasels Up on one of the tracks, Zombie, way back 2015. And all I knew was the track was in the key of E, so I tried to keep it within the parameters of what Zappa would think. It was like, I've got an imagination, I've got this amount of time to decorate it. So I had no idea, any preconceived ideas of what was going to do in Zombie. I think I'd heard the track a couple of times. I hadn't rehearsed it, nothing. So I just walked onto the stage in front of a sold-out audience and played what was there at that moment. And that was me trying to get myself into a place where I thought it's either going to go up the way or I'm going to fall. You know, if you're going to fall, you might as well be spectacular about it. Unfortunately, it went great. I came off with a huge feeling of pride, but not really knowing exactly what I was proud of, because I was really caught up in the whole energy of it. But I think that's part and parcel of what I'm trying to get to, is always being around the energy and feeding from the audience as well. Because the audience, if they're in on it and they're gunning for it, you can feed off of that. So that's part and parcel of that whole energy thing. What it is, I have no idea.
It's
I don't know.
Opposite, right? It's like you think that people would practice and then do their best and perfect performance in front of a crowd, but it's really in front of the crowd that you want to do all these. You want to go. You feed it on a limb. You want to take that risk. Another route. Yeah.
Well,
crowd.
Miles once told John McGofflin, play the guitar, play like you don't know how to play the guitar. And, I think there's a tremendous value in that because, and that's part of the problem with the YouTube videos is when you're on YouTube, of course, you want to display your best stuff. And so I go and watch these bands on YouTube and I take it for granted they're all just like technical monsters and you watch the drummers and everything else. And it's just like staggering, 2 levels above anything back in the 70s. But so many of them leave me cold because, the heart and ideas aren't there. If you think about, go back through your record collection, look at the things that you value and keep returning to. It's like Old Weather. I mean, they had the compositional ideas, the clarity of expression, where you go back time and time again. It's almost listening to like a classic folk tune where it's like, you hum it in your head, you hum it in the shower, just because the compositions and ideas are there. And they didn't let their talent get in the way of their music making. Right. Whereas so much nowadays, it's like, the gospel chops and these guys, mostly guys, brilliant, but, they don't yet have the ideas or clarity of expression where they can make something that I'll want to like sing to myself the next day. And, that's the thing where you get somebody like, a good example would be, I don't know if you're friend of Brian Blade. He has a Brian Blade Fellowship Band. And there's an example where, a marvelous band, he's a marvelous drummer. And the idea there is the compositions and the ensemble ideas are so clear that you listen to it, it's like it's pure heart music. You listen to this, it just makes you feel good and just makes you want to hear more of that music. And that's, I don't know where that comes from, but it's like fundamentally you have to come in there with sort of musical concepts first, and then hopefully you have the technical ability to express them but not ruin them.
I think a lot of it's, you think you're dead right. I think a lot of it is being brave enough to bare yourself and expect yourself to be able to collect yourself if you fall apart. That's
There's really no other way. Yeah.
There really isn't. And you either, show yourself up for all your flaws and all the rest of it and hope that the audience that is actually you're playing to is going to be forgiving about it and kind of, come on, and then you feed off of that and you give back. So there's this feeding of energy back and forward.
You can't suck, right? You can't suck.
But it also takes incredible balls to do that. It's not always possible, depending on how you're feeling yourself personally as well, because you've got to be on form to be able to pick yourself back up if you do fall, because if your ego gets crushed that much, getting back on that stage, you're just going to be not going there. I've been there too.
So can I welcome Mark Hartley? Hello, Mark. Say hello to everybody.
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing?
Where's Mark? Mark is the bass player in the group that me and Roy have called the Law of Three. I've known Mark for a long, long time, probably going back to mid-90s. So when we played together, and Mark is one of the most insane bass players I know. He's an absolutely virtuoso bass player. I don't like to say it when he's listening because he'll get a really big head. But it is the case. He can do things on the bass that I've never seen anyone else do. So it's not, and the thing is, with having Roy and Mark here, they really are incredible virtuosos. But it's always interesting when you chat to virtuosos how much that is at the focus of what they're trying to do. I think I was chatting to a guitarist last night at the event, and we were saying, that you have a journey in music, and it's like your journey is unique to you. And you attain these skills, and for some people it's with a certain type of virtuosity. Then other people have a different type of virtuosity. Then someone else has something else. They're like really amazing personality, like Keith Moon. An incredible personality and energy. And I think that's something as well, is to try and learn who you are as a musician yourself, and then have the strength to go, yeah, I love that and I love that, but that's not me. I don't do that, and I don't do that. I know what I do. It's like. You can't imagine B.B. King getting upset by all these virtuoso internet guitarists, can you? Oh, what's the point? What's the point?
It's interesting you're talking about B.B. King, because I was like, I'm getting out of music. Or another great artist, obviously Bruce Lee. I'm studied quite a lot of martial arts and a lot of the Chinese philosophy, and bringing that into the folksy music as well was really interesting, because he was always about simply simplifying something. So any one technique he was doing was breaking it down to its finest component, so it was just to the point without any messing. Of course, his big fighting skill was street fighting, without all the classical mess and all the palaver. Once you do this, and once you do that, and then all the time your opponent's kicking crap out of you. So it's kind of, he was coming from a perspective of just getting to truth in himself. And I thought was quite interesting was when he evolved the old Wing Chun system of Kung Fu and brought in his own Jeet Kune Do to the fold. He left it wide open. He said, "This is my martial art for me." You know, he wasn't promoting it as saying it's a thing that everybody should learn. He was just saying, "This is for me, and this works for me." And I thought that was interesting. So by taking that very thing, that there's no one person or no one way or no one technique was going to work for any one other person either, because we're all individually completely different and very complex. So it is a process of self-discovery. And that is, it can be quite traumatizing.
It is difficult.
I mean, I know
art's difficult. Yeah. I've always said this. It's like, I always say to my students, you come to music college, you're going to try it out. And if it's not for you, say, thank God this is not for me. I can go and have my normal life, normal job, go on holiday, have barbecues in the garden and all that, because music's a curse. It's not fun. It's a difficult curse. So we're coming into the last 10 minutes. I've only got 40 minutes here, and I've got to be honest, I was a bit apprehensive about this, but I am actually really enjoying it. And this is really interesting to have all these people talking and not knowing where the conversation is going at all. So to open it up, anyone who hasn't had a say, or does anyone want to come in with a question? Neil, will you quit? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I just want to speak just real quickly to what Doran was saying. And I think, for me, I took a left turn down a dirt road like 20 years ago into just free improv. And what happened for me is that whole measure of perfection disappears without going into something with some preconception of how it's got to be, and just beginning to build these frameworks where I could just sit down every time I pick up the instrument and create, not compose things that I have to rehearse and play perfectly, but just create in whatever parameters I set up, has completely removed that whole measure of perfection and the feeling of, oh, I failed at that, or I didn't quite get that across, because I'm experiencing the music as I'm playing it along with the audience or the walls or whatever. So I think maybe that's lucky for me, and it's not a go for everybody, like Roy was saying, but it has kind of remove that whole need for me, and now I can sit down every time with a goal or not, and create something new and experience something new, and then move to the next thing.
Anyone? I want to make sure you all get to say something. So when I get it, I'll stick it on YouTube tomorrow. I'm going to put this on the main one. So I all want you to be able to see your little face come up and say something. So anyone who has to say, do you want to chime in? Neil, I know you said nothing. Yeah, go on.
I've said nothing. I'm the only non-musician in the room, I think, which is. What
does this all sound like to you as a sort of listener?
You're the audience. The gig.
I know I'm interested in listening to this, and I have thoughts. I mean, you're all talking about where the music comes from, and I've been a big fan of Robert Fripp for a long time, and he's, very well, the Gurdjieff thing with him and the mystical side stuff. And he's not the only person who said that when the music's really happening, you're not sure whether it's you making the music or the music making you. There you go.
True.
So nobody really knows where it comes from, do they? We still don't know. So and I just think of other people who are getting to flow and things, like really good athletes or whatever. I think the idea is you just train yourself well enough to get out of the way and let the thing happen. That's
yeah, well, at some point I'll bring Fai Janzek into one of these, because Fai's he really truly believes that there's a universal consciousness and it's acting through us.
That's great.
Yeah. So I don't know whether I but yeah, he'll come in and tell you some all really strange things when we get fired. So anyone else want to chime in and got anything to say? Mark, you've been very quiet.
No, I've been really interested to listen to everything that's been said, and I think it just boils down to the fact that as artists, you know, we all, or as musicians, we all pick an instrument, yeah. But I think I've said this to you in the past that yeah, my chosen medium or instrument is bass, but on a very high level, I don't think of myself as the bass player. I think myself as a musician who plays this chosen instrument in the ensemble. And especially, obviously, you know, we've had a near 30-year relationship, but when meeting Roy, which for everyone else, you know, I know Andy had a kind of message relationship with Roy for a number of months. And then I got the call from Andy a week before Roy's masterclass in Kidderminster, our kind of local town. And I met Roy half an hour before we went on stage, and we improvised the entire set. And it was just, for me, and I know the other guys, it was magical, because it was one of those instances where we just clicked. We got the adrenaline of, we knew there were some people in the audience we knew we got to impress, but we just hit it off straight away. And it also, the follow-on from that, writing the Law of Three album, has all been based around, you know, I'll be just in my office at home here playing away, I'll come with ideas and I'll put it on the WhatsApp group. And before I know it, Roy's developed it and put melodies on it. And, you know, I don't know where the idea came from. And I wasn't thinking about being a bass player. In fact, a lot of the stuff I'm doing is using a Roland GR55. So I'm triggering, you know, the Cosm samples and all the rest of it. And I'm playing as strings or anything other than bass. And some of the stuff that's just come out, when I listen back, it's just fantastic. And I don't know, I often think, I don't think I could write that if I sat down and thought about it. It's only through improvisation or my ability to be able to improvise, having tried to hone my skills as a musician over the last 40 years, that I can do that, you know? And I think that's going to that point of where you don't think about what it is you're playing, you just do it. And that's when the magic happens. As soon as you start thinking about it, it becomes formulaic. You drop into, oh, this scale, that pattern, that's box shape, and it takes it out of that magical area. For me, anyway, that's kind of my take on it.
Do you find yourself recomposing, like doing the improvisations, and then recording it, kind of learning it, developing it, and then recomposing what you've improvised in the start?
Yeah, very much so. What I always try and do, because obviously we all have good days and bad days of sitting and practicing or playing. When I feel like I'm in that zone, I just put my phone on, or I've got a home recorder, and I just get it going. I try and capture whatever it is I'm doing. And then when there's a magical bit in there, that's the bit I'll hone on and think, this is something we need to develop on, and work on it from there, because you know that moment's never going to happen again.
Right.
Yeah. And it's one of those, you know, it sometimes, so if you're in a bad mood, you can come up with a really nice piece because you're in a certain zone, or sometimes when you're chilled. But everything I do, we have a Law of Three WhatsApp group. Every time, literally, I've come up with an idea, I send it to the guys and go, "Wow, what do you think of this?" You know, and Roy more or less immediately comes back with, I've thought of something already I can do with this. And
that bloody Law of Three WhatsApp group. It's pinging at me all bloody night, you two.
Yeah, Andy's the silent one because he's always on. He's always doing.
What are they doing now? we're down to the last 4 minutes. Have you enjoyed this?
Yeah.
It's a good idea, isn't it? We've got to do this more. I've got so many different musicians, and I like the idea of bringing in different musicians as well. There's a lot of people saying they want to jump in and do this, and you know, with you lot paying me money, I really should go and pay for the proper Zoom account where you can do it unlimited and not be limited to 40 minutes. But I'm not going to, because I'm too miserly. I'm gonna have to wait to get. I mean, I'm coming up to 150 patrons. I will pay for Zoom. How about that? But you can't do it. You're supporting me. I'm going to finish up there. I do want to say I cannot tell you how appreciative I have of you guys, and you don't realise is that there's a lot going on with my jobs and stuff like this. A lot of stuff going on, and this is helping my family. This is an incredible thing for me to have that extra cash there. And getting paid for stuff I absolutely love doing with a bunch of people that are just so warm and friendly. I love you all, and I love you, Roy. I love you, Mark. And that's what music is.
Likewise,
Matt. End. I think that's the answer, Doran. That's the answer. That's what you're looking for. In the end, there's a you know, it's that thing of, like Mark says, of people have never met each other, and they can walk on stage and then start playing, and suddenly there's a bond, and you go, I don't even know this person. It's something that, but I think art just brings us all together, and we have to remember that. I'm trying to make you cry at the end of this meeting. So when I put on YouTube, I go, oh, I've got to join this Patron. It was so brilliant, and right at the end, I had a little tear in my eye. You got so emotional, and I was trying my best. And I looked at the time. I got 2 minutes. I ain't not going to be able to push him over the edge. You know, I can see Neil there. He's about to break. I can see he's holding it in. He's holding it in.
Barely.
Yes, go on, squeeze one out for me.
Go on. You know, I said I got a surprise.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a downfall. My ridiculous, surreal sense of humour. It worries me, you know. Sometimes it worries me. But anyway, have you enjoyed it? I'm going to stop recording now. What's that there? What's Colin got? Is that my album?
Surprise, Andy.
Do you like it?
The only copy in the world of your latest album on 8-track tape.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
No way.
Put it up again, and I'm going to use that as the thumbnail. Do it again. Say something, Colin, so you register. So we've definitely got it.
That's the only 8-track tape in the whole world with your latest album on.
Wow!
I love you. I really do. I tell you, it's brilliant. It's cheered me up. Cheered me up. It has. I have a rubbish day in real life. Then you come into it, and it just cheers me up. It's actually been quite good. I had a meeting with my mate Kevin Gammond, who was the guitarist with Robert Plant. I'd love to get him in here. He's got some stories. I'm going to stop recording now. Say bye to everybody. Bye bye.
Bye,
bye, bye, bye,
bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
See you next time.